When the thought crossed their minds, the disciples of the Pure Yang Sword sect were already filled with regret. To move them from the eastern divine land to this unknown place without a sound, how could the Zhu Tian ruins market be simple? But it was too late. In the free trading area, Song Kai, who had transformed into a vampire, shifted his thoughts, and then the power of laws in the sky above the secret realm rapidly converged, eventually forming a tens of meters long law golden dragon. Roar! The ethereal golden dragon let out a long cry, and then before the eyes of over 1,000 starry sea alien beings at the market, the figures of the Pure Yang Sword sect disciples simultaneously softened. Thud, thud, thud. Without exception, all 8 knelt at the entrance to the market, like 8 door guardians on watch, causing some of the starry sea alien species to barely contain their laughter. Despite the starry sea aliens acting as if nothing was amiss, and not feeling deterred by the golden dragon of laws above, the 8 disciples of the Pure Yang Sword sect genuinely felt an indescribable oppressive force. Crack, crack, crack. Under this terrifying pressure, it was as if each of them bore the weight of a 10,000-pound boulder on their backs, suffocating them, cracking all their bones, and under such overwhelming oppression, they could not even muster the thought of resisting, let alone mobilize the mana within their bodies. Just then, another fluctuation of space passed through the entrance of the market, and another figure appeared. It was the Pure Yang Sword sect disciple who had stayed outside, who, not seeing his peers return for a long time, also rushed through the spatial gate. After sweeping through the market entrance's barrier of laws and understanding his fellow disciples' temperaments, he instantly surmised what had transpired. He quickly approached the gates of the market, his gaze sweeping over the crowd of observing alien species, and finally, his eyes turned upward to the ethereal golden dragon in the vault of heaven. My fellow sect brothers acted improperly, breaking the ruins market regulations, so we are willing to offer compensation and ask for forgiveness for our unintentional offense. After speaking, he tapped his storage bag at his waist, and immediately 9 beams of light shot out, eventually piling up into 9 silver piles on the stone ground before him. This person was quite astute, capturing the key point of bartering in the free trading zone in just a brief time. Thus, he didn't produce spirit stones commonly used on the primordial continent for trade, but instead, like some of the alien races, brought out a relatively precious mineral resource. After all, it was very likely that they were not on the primordial continent, and spirit stones that were generally used in the cultivation world would probably not be accepted here, making mineral resources a more suitable choice. Furthermore, he had also intentionally included himself among the offenders and offered his own compensation, reducing his stance to the lowest point. From afar, Song Qi's eyes scanned over the 9 silver sand piles. Water moon silver sand, a rather rare resource, much needed in many mechanical creations, with market prices in the Chengxing Principality averaging around 10 strands of first-rank floating land origin per ton. There were 9 piles in front of him now, each weighing exactly 1 ton, equivalent to 900 strands of zero-rank floating land origin. After pondering for a moment, his thoughts shifted, and soon the ethereal golden dragon in the heavens let out a soft cry, and immediately after, the laws of the secret realm condensed a single character in the high sky. Agreed. This character, formed of the power of laws, was such that all beings in the market understood its specific meaning with just one glance. As for why he agreed, it was simple. Firstly, these people were only preparing to act, without actually injuring anyone. Secondly, since the beginning of the ruins market trading, it was the first encounter with the human race, hence there was considerable curiosity about these people, making it improper to expel them outright. The power of laws in the vault of heaven quickly dispersed, and the oppressive force weighing down the 8 red-faced, kneeling disciples of the Pure Yang Sword sect was gone, allowing them to finally stand up with difficulty. Yet in their eyes was no hint of resentment, only a lingering fear. Just as they exchanged grateful glances with the later arriving disciple, several alien species, including the vampire that Song Kai had transformed into, started to approach from the free trading zone. The focus of these aliens was nearly unanimous. their gazes fixed directly on the storage bags at the waists of the disciples from the Pure Yang Sword sect. The scene of aliens receiving 9 tons of water moon silver sand was still fresh in their minds. These alien species were sure that the peculiar bags were a precious kind of space-related storage device, Song Kai included. How rare were space-related storage devices? Seeing them now, these alien beings naturally coveted them. While they couldn't forcibly take them, as long as the price was reasonable, they were of course willing to make a purchase. Seeing the numerous alien beings intently staring at their storage bags, the disciples of the Pure Yang Sword sect subconsciously put their hands on their waists, but they were quickly reminded of the ethereal law Golden Dragon from earlier and consequently calmed down. One of the disciples, at the 9th rank of Qi cultivation, began to explain. This is a storage bag, it can only be opened with the mana within our bodies, it's not usable by you. To the alien species listening, his words made no sense, but Song Kai did not have this limitation. His brow instinctively furrowed as if this was indeed the case, then this so-called storage bag would be greatly devalued. Of course, deep down he still harbored a last shred of hope that the spectral energy bestowed by the Seed of Torch, with its special property of accommodating most types of energy within the Starry Sea, might substitute for the energy known as mana. Thinking this, the group of alien race members brought several members of the Pure Yang Sword sect over to the side of the Universal Translator. After the translation, the alien race members finally understood the limitations of the storage bag. However, empty words proved nothing, and the alien race members were still unwilling to give up. Seeing this, a few disciples of the Pure Yang Sword sect took out several spare, unused storage bags and let the alien race members try for themselves. Relying on the power of the Ruins Market Law, Song Kai naturally succeeded in obtaining one of them first. Subsequently, spectral energy circulated within his body, slowly gathering towards the storage bag in his hand. Soon after, his heart chilled. No matter how much spectral energy he injected, the storage bag in his hand did not respond at all, which meant that spectral energy couldn't activate the storage bag. Coming to this conclusion, he was greatly disappointed, and he didn't even mind when an alien race member swiftly took the storage bag from his hands. Since spectral energy couldn't activate it, the value of the storage bag naturally plummeted. Although it was still possible to use it indirectly in other ways, it would be 100 or 1,000 times more bothersome. For example, he could keep a disciple of the Pure Yang Sword sect by his side and have them specifically manage the storage bag for him, and then he would get a special enslavement component to completely turn the disciple into his own enslaved creature. But if he wanted to use this method, not to mention how to keep a disciple of the Pure Yang Sword sect without raising suspicion, just obtaining an enslavement ship component was difficult enough. Such ship components were extremely rare, and whenever they appeared, they were often sought after at all costs by torch ship captains whose lifespans were nearing their end. Because such components would allow them to enslave a vampire in advance, which greatly reduced the chance of the vampire turning the tables after a successful first embrace. Generally speaking, even a white-quality enslavement component could sell for exorbitant prices, comparable to a top-ranked blue ship component, and it could even reach the pricing level of a purple component. The markup was terrifyingly high, and the items were always in demand but rarely available. Regaining his senses, Song Kai was about to return and continue running his stall, but then he suddenly noticed that of the 9 disciples of the Pure Yang Sword sect originally in front of him, now only 5 remained. Using a god's eye view to search, he quickly located the 4 who had disappeared. More accurately, it was 5 people. Apart from the 4 members of the Pure Yang Sword sect, there was also the person named Zhou Ping, who was the first to enter the Ruins Market. These 5 were currently gathered in the newly opened Oddity Exchange Shop, with that Zhou Ping at the furthest inside of the shop, and the 4 disciples of the Pure Yang Sword sect standing at the entryway. Having learned from their previous experience, the 4 didn't dare to start a fight, but their intention to surround was all too clear. They were prepared to watch Zhou Ping closely, or rather, the clearly higher-level storage bag in his hand. Seeing this, Song Kai discreetly walked back to his stall area, his interest keenly piqued by the scene unfolding within the oddity exchange shop. Truth be told, he was also curious about the storage bag in Zhou Ping's hands. According to what the disciples of the Pure Yang Sword Sect had said, the owner of this storage bag seemed to have been someone named Elder Tianhe. As a fan of novels in his previous life, he was all too familiar with the elders in the cultivation civilization. They were bona fide power figures in a cultivation sect. What kind of good things might be in the storage bag of an elder? While he pondered, the situation in the oddity exchange shop changed. Zhou Ping suddenly raised his right hand, which was holding the storage bag, and then addressed the projection screen at the center of the shop. "I am willing to pay a reward. Please help me open this storage bag." Elder Tianhe was a newly promoted elder of the Pure Yang Sword Sect who had recently broken through to the nascent soul stage. Even though he had already fallen under the sword intent of divinity transformation, the primordial spirit brand he left behind wasn't something a chi cultivator could erase in a short time. Without erasing the primordial spirit brand of the previous owner, it was naturally impossible to open the storage bag. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the four disciples of the Pure Yang Sword Sect behind him changed drastically, and they stepped forward in unison. But then they remembered their previous ordeal and, feeling unwilling, they eventually stopped in their tracks. In the free stall area, Song Qi's eyes flickered, revealing an indecipherable expression, yet he did not rush to reply. He wouldn't be so easily fooled. Willing to pay a reward, but what exactly was the reward? A piece of iron ore could be a reward, and a high-rank starry sea oddity could also be a reward, but could the two really be equated? His thoughts shifted, and a line of text appeared on the projection screen in the center of the oddity exchange shop. "Please specify the exact reward." Zhou Ping's heart tightened. He sorted through his belongings and finally took out a fist-sized mineral from his storage bag. Song Kai recognized the ore. It's hematite, 300 years old. Its value won't exceed 50 strands of first-rank floating land origin. After a moment, a new line of text materialized on the light screen. "The divine thought fluctuations above the item are extremely strong. The compensation is insufficient." Seeing this, Zhou Ping gritted his teeth and took out 2 more items from his storage bag, but they still did not meet Song Qi's requirements and were rejected. In the end, after much consideration, Zhou Ping did not take out any more items from his storage bag. Before this, he was just a minor chi cultivator of the 8th level, so what valuable things could he have on him? He pointed to the exquisite storage bag in his right hand and said, "As long as you can open this storage bag, I am willing to choose 1 item as a reward from the top 5 most valuable items inside." Upon hearing this, Song Qi's eyes paused, and his mind raced as he seriously contemplated whether the proposal was viable. Seconds later, he agreed. After all, it was an elder's storage bag and should contain some good items. Although he did not know what level of cultivation Elder Tianhe had, judging by the first-rank cultivation of the 10 people who entered the ruins market, the elder was at least a second-rank cultivator. The contents of a second-rank cultivator's storage bag should not be bad at all. Agreed. After this response, the 5 people felt a mysterious energy beginning to surge into the shop beneath their feet. The storage bag Zhou Ping was clutching began to float slowly upward, and the next second, wisps and strands of power of laws infused into the storage bag. Although Song Kai could not use this storage bag, he could still, with the aid of the power of laws of the ruins market secret realm, erase the inactive primordial spirit mark within it. When the storage bag fell back into Zhou Ping's hand, sensing that the imprint of the primordial spirit in the bag had indeed been erased, his eyes could no longer hide his joy and excitement. However, before opening the storage bag, Zhou Ping tentatively made another request. "May the 4 people behind me leave first?" Agreed. With that said, a gentle repulsive force pushed the 4 disciples of the Pure Yang Sword Sect out of the oddity exchange shop. After this, Zhou Ping had no other concerns. Mana surged within him, and he poured his spiritual into the storage bag. After imprinting his own mark on it, he directly took out all the items from the storage bag in one swoop. Whoosh! In an instant, the entire oddity exchange shop was almost completely filled. In the free stall area, Song Kai shrugged his shoulders, slightly startled by this sudden commotion. But the next second, his eyes suddenly narrowed and his gaze was entirely captured by an item, a miniature short sword. The reason this short sword drew his attention was not due to anything else but the intense orange glow emanating from its blade. Indeed, it was an orange-level Starry Sea oddity. As soon as Song Kai concentrated, the attribute panel for the short sword swiftly appeared before his eyes. Strange object. Pure Yang sword pill. Quality. Orange. P.S. Guess what this Pure Yang sword pill can transform into as a shipborne component, Doghead. Looking at the attribute panel that appeared on the surface of the short sword from a god's eye view, Song Chi's breath quickened. Even the beating of his heart sounded like war drums, thumping non-stop. Because the strange object that the short sword could be converted into was exactly the weak spot on the Kang Chong, and it was something he had been desperately searching for without success. Strange object. Pure Yang sword pill. Quality. Orange. Convertible. Pure Yang sword beam cannon. Remark. An elder from the Pure Yang sword sect on the primordial continent refined this item over several decades using 5th-rank materials combined with the sword sect's secret techniques, then nurtured it with pure mana within his body for hundreds of years, finally creating this orange-quality Starry Sea oddity. Indeed, what it could be converted into was an orange-quality shipborne main cannon, and for Song Kai, who was eager to explore the Buluo civilization ruins once more, if he could get his hands on this orange main cannon and pair it with the group attack secondary cannon, electromagnetic ray cannon, the unknown third layer of the ruins space would pose no threat to the Kang Chong. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had to obtain this orange main cannon and enhance its level. Setting these aside, after carefully examining the short sword's attributes, Song Kai quietly wrapped a thread of spectral energy around the blade with the power of laws. Soon, he received another set of attributes. Pure Yang sword beam cannon LV0 quality. Orange feature. Mixed hollow extreme Yang sword intent divine light. Feature 2. Main cannon might increase by 40% consumption. 500 shot, spectral energy points. Attack. 27 charge. 10s. Buffer. 20s up rank requirement. 10 strands of floating land origin. 0 rank. 1000 energy points. 1 ton of sunflame ore. Without a doubt, this orange quality, Pure Yang sword beam cannon, was a truly top-rank main cannon in every sense, with attributes so exaggerated they were terrifying, and even more fearsome was the Mixed Hollow Extreme Yang Sword Intent Divine Light feature. Mixed Hollow Extreme Yang Sword Intent Divine Light. After charging for 5 minutes, it releases a giant sword intent slash in the designated direction, possessing 200% of the main cannon's might and destroying everything in its path. Note: the Extreme Yang Sword Intent Divine Light can also deal 80% damage to intangible energy creatures and 120% damage to those with yin-cold energy attributes. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Song Kai swore to himself that he had to get his hands on this strange object, then turned his attention back to Zhou Ping, still flushed red with excitement. Zhou Ping was previously just an ordinary outer sect disciple of the Luofu sword sect and had never seen so many top-tier treasures. He was still lost in the massive surprise and couldn't extricate himself from it. It was Song Kai who used the power of laws to pull him back to reality. Once he came to his senses, Zhou Ping remembered his earlier promise and anxiously began sorting through a pile of items in the shop, selecting what he believed to be the 5 most valuable items. He had a profound experience of the methods of the great being behind this ruins market. Not keeping his word, mixing the good with the bad, these were things he didn't dare to do. After a good while of searching, he finally chose 5 items. In the free stall zone, Song Kai frowned. The 5 items Zhou Ping had selected as the most valuable were very different from what he had imagined. If it wasn't for Zhou Ping including the short sword strange object, Song Kai might have thought Zhou Ping was just fobbing him off with 5 random items. Apart from the short sword strange object, the other 4 items were a jade bone shield, a grid-patterned compass, and 2 exquisitely crafted Qingfeng longswords. Among these 4, excluding the grid-patterned compass which could be converted into a blue-quality, Blackwater Zon turtle warship armor component, the other 3 could not be turned into shipborne components. Of course, from the fluorescing light flowing incessantly over their surfaces, it was evident that these 3 items were also valuable in the hands of that Tianhe elder, but they were of no use to Song Kai. The central projection screen in the shop flickered with bursts of red light, then 4 of the 5 items held by Zhou Ping automatically fell back to the pile of goods below, leaving only the strange object short sword. As for the blue oddity that could be turned into a Blackwater Zon turtle warship armor, Song Kai, who already had the starry V-type alloy armor, did not keep it either. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. From the 4 corners of the pile of items, 4 other items quickly flew out. 2 clusters of luminescent white brilliance, a black pouch, and a palm-sized white jade token. These 4 were the items that Song Kai, with his power as the Ruins Market Lord, had selected from the countless goods as the most valuable to him. The 2 clusters of white brilliance were floating land origins. Within one cluster was a 3rd rank level floating land origin, totaling 100 strands. In another, a rare 4th rank level floating land origin, though the quantity was a bit low, with only 20 strands. But comparatively, the value of these 2 was on par with a purple relic. And within that black pouch, there was the titanium crystal that Song Kai had been searching for to no avail. The quantity was only 50 pieces. The last item, the palm-sized jade token, was a purple-level strange object, which could also be turned into a shipborne component. Spiritual energy nameplate LV0 quality. Purple feature. Shield value increases by 25%. Consumption. 100. Activation. Spectral energy points. Shield numbers generated. 3/3 effect. Generates a shield with a shield value of 175/175 for a designated unit, small, in the form of an individual spiritual energy shield. Buffer. 72 hours. No charge required. Duration. 30 minutes. Up rank requirement. 6 strands of floating land origin, 0 rank, 600 spectral energy points. It can be said that, among these items, aside from the Pyryong swordbeam cannon, what Song Kai wanted most was this spiritual energy nameplate, a component that could activate an individual shield at any time to save his life. Although the Kang Chong had a dark matter energy shield generator, Song Kai couldn't possibly stay on the Torch warship at all times. There would always be moments when he had to retract the warship, and in situations where he couldn't summon the Kang Chong in time, having an individual shield that could be activated at any moment was absolutely a life-saving artifact. As for the floating land origin and titanium crystals, with the Zutian Ruins Market in place, he would eventually earn these sooner or later, but the spiritual energy engraving component was different. Such components were extremely rare, and once this opportunity was missed, he had no idea when he might encounter them again. Unfortunately, even though he had selected these 5 items, the final choice wasn't up to him. It was Zhou Ping who had to decide which one of the 5 would be taken as compensation. Previously, the other party had said he would take out one of the 5 most valuable items in the storage bag, but he did not specify which one. However, he only sighed out of habit and didn't really take it to heart. After all, in the end, most of these valuable goods in the other party's hands, if not all, over 90% would end up in his pocket. Song Kai was confident in this. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happened, this person was likely to become his representative on the primordial continent, a link and connection. He would become a money tree under his command, continuously gathering the wealth of the primordial continent for him. Therefore, he did not want to be too oppressive in their first trade. If that had been the case, he wouldn't have let the other party choose but would have selected for himself. Looking back at Zhou Ping, The speed at which he made a decision was somewhat unexpected. He didn't consider too much, directly pushing out the orb of third-rank floating land origin as the compensation. Song Chi's eyes revealed a look of, as expected, and was not surprised. With a movement of his hand, he controlled the ruins market law and directly swept up the 100 strands of third-rank floating land origin. The next second the light disappeared within the oddity exchange shop. In the free stall area, Song Kai quietly stored the 100 strands of third-rank floating land origin into the ancestral torch. In addition to his own bound torch warship, the ancestral torch could also store any strange object that could be converted into torch components, as well as floating land origin. After storing the floating land origin, his attention remained mostly focused on the oddity exchange shop. Having only obtained 100 strands of third-rank floating land origin, Song Kai naturally would not stop there, as Zhou Ping had many more valuable things in his hands. With narrowed eyes, he noticed something interesting at the moment Zhou Ping quickly put away a large pile of items. He did not rush to leave the oddity exchange shop. Instead, his gaze continually lingered over a few Starry Sea oddity samples on the shelves. After observing for a while, Song Kai soon realized that his gaze mostly settled on two of the strange objects. Strange object. Ninth Heaven Cloud Essence. Quality: purple. Evolution: none. Remark: the Ninth Heaven Cloud Essence, nurtured at the peak of the Ninth Heavens of Juyin Continent. Maybe the native creatures of Juyin Continent know how to use it. Strange object. Fulling crystal. Quality: blue. Evolution: none. Remark: an object nurtured in the core of a small asteroid for nearly 10,000 years. Very few creatures can utilize it. These two strange objects were both purchased from the Chengxing multifunctional shop. Song Kai had initially just wanted to give it a try and was even ready for a long time not being able to sell them. Yet, unexpectedly, Zhou Ping seemed interested in them. Excited by this discovery, Song Kai could completely use this to insert his request for a trade of the Pure Yang Sword Pill. May I ask, how would you trade for this Ninth Heaven Cloud Essence and Fulling Crystal? As he spoke, Song Kai sharply caught a flash of excitement in the depths of Zhou Ping's eyes. Although Zhou Ping hid it well, Song Kai, as the master of the Ruins Market Secret Realm and controller of the origin law of the Secret Realm, was omniscient and omnipotent within this Ruins Market. How could he fail to notice this subtle hint? He grew even more certain that the Ninth Heaven Cloud Essence and Fulling Crystal must be of great value, even exceedingly rare, on the primordial continent. In reality, this was indeed the case, but there was one thing he misconstrued. The truly valuable item wasn't the Fulling Crystal, which, although also a rare third-rank forging material, was far less valuable than the Ninth Heaven Cloud Essence. This Ninth Heaven Cloud Essence, known as the Gangfeng Cloud Essence, on the primordial continent, was something only powerful beings above the late nascent soul stage could attempt to gather from the Gangfeng heavens. Its value was extremely high. Song Kai gave a vague and noncommittal reply. Barter goods. Zhou Ping hesitated for a moment before handing over a black cloth bag containing titanium crystals from the remaining 4 items in his hand. In the free trading zone, Song Kai instinctively shook his head. Although titanium crystals were rare, there were only 50 of them after all. If it was for exchanging the 0-rank floating land origin, he would accept, but not for the Nine Heavens Cloud Essence, considering it had cost him tens of thousands of strands of 0-rank floating land origin. I can exchange it for the titanium crystals. Seeing the reply on the projection screen, Zhou Ping didn't think too much and immediately agreed to the trade. He had just opened the black cloth bag to take a look and was lucky enough to recognize the mineral titanium crystal. Discovered in the Black Sky Realm 100 years ago, this new type of ore had initially caught the attention of several major sects. However, as its specific application had never been developed, over time, it had been classified as a useless type of ore. After receiving the titanium crystal, Zhou Ping's gaze still lingered on the Nine Heavens Cloud Essence. As long as he could exchange it, and later handed over to his sect, he believed that the resources needed for his subsequent Foundation establishment would largely be taken care of. In the free trading zone, Song Kai was also organizing his thoughts. After a while, he directed his thoughts. In the oddity exchange shop, the projection screen at the center changed again. Do you have any intention of parting with that short sword in your hands? Upon reading these words, Zhou Ping's expression immediately tensed. He instinctively tightened his grip on the short sword in his right hand. A second later, as if thinking of something, his eyes showed a deep struggle. This sword pill was the Pure Yang sword pill, a core teaching of the Pure Yang sword sect, slightly stronger than the Luofu sword sect's Luofu flying sword. If he could keep it for his own future use, his combat power would undoubtedly be higher than that of his peers at the same rank. But the dilemma was that the rank of this sword pill was simply too high. Wondering when he would be truly able to use it left him uncertain. It could be years away. Forget Foundation establishment. Even if he achieved Golden Core one day, it would still be difficult to use. A few moves would drain all the mana in his body. Most likely, only a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core stage would be able to control this sword pill to some extent in combat. Realizing that he was currently only at the 8th level of Qi cultivation, and so far from the peak of the Golden Core, Zhou Ping couldn't help feeling somewhat deflated. Seeing this, Song Kai did not urge him but waited quietly. Facing an orange glory level strange object, he had ample patience and was also careful not to suddenly disrupt the other's internal weighing of pros and cons. After all, he had already preemptively calculated several times before, and the conclusion was that selling the short sword would be the most beneficial for him. As for the idea of forcing a trade, such a thought had never crossed his mind. There was still much time ahead, and he wouldn't do anything that might tarnish his reputation. There are no secrets that can't get out in the world. Maintaining the rules and reputation of the Zutian Ruins market was more important than anything else. After much internal conflict, Zhou Ping finally made a decision. He looked up again at the projection screen and slowly spoke. In the free trading zone, Song Kai felt a little anxious, fearing that he might hear a response he couldn't accept. I can sell this sword pill, but just the 9 Heavens Cloud essence alone is not enough. At this, Song Kai breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Zhou Ping didn't refuse to sell, they could always discuss the price. At the same time, he tapped his brow and thought rapidly, trying hard to think of what else he had that might interest the other party. It seemed like a long consideration, but in reality, it was just a moment. In Zhou Ping's eyes, the projection screen before him quickly gave a response. Yes. Following this word, less than a meter in front of Zhou Ping, a faint spatial fluctuation transmitted with no warning. This anomaly startled Zhou Ping, but before he could react otherwise, a bronze token quietly emerged, hovering in the air before him. Zhou Ping curled his lips, muttering to himself that his reaction was a bit over the top. With the abilities of the great being behind the ruins market, if they had wanted, they could have easily crushed him without all the previous dawdling. He tentatively reached out and slowly touched the bronze token. A moment later, all the information about the bronze token appeared in his mind, and then he mumbled to himself. Ruins Market Guest Token. 5 additional chances to enter and exit the Zutian Ruins Market. If I can continue to provide other valuable resources in the future, the number of chances can be increased. After sorting out the extra information in his mind, Zhou Ping nodded in agreement. Good. This Ruins Market Guest Token plus the 9 Heavens Cloud Essence. With that, he raised his right hand and passed over the Pure Yang sword pill. In the free trade area, Song Kai clenched his fist lightly, cheering inside, feeling like he had gained something without any effort. The 9 Heavens Cloud Essence had almost no value within the Torch human civilization territory. As for the Ruins Market Guest Token, since he had learned that behind the other party was a world of immortal cultivation, he had already decided to issue it. Based on these two factors, it didn't take much effort to exchange for the Pure Yang sword pill's strange object. After gathering the sword pill with the power of laws, Song Kai was preparing to examine the second orange glory quality strange object he had acquired, but at that moment, Zhou Ping spoke up again. May I ask, can I offer the lives of those 9 Pure Yang Sword Sect disciples as a reward for these 20 strands of 4th rank spiritual mechanism? To Song Kai, this request didn't come as a surprise, given the relationship and attitude previously displayed by both parties. A life and death battle was inevitable, and for Zhou Ping to now leverage his assets to put a bounty on the Pure Yang Sword Sect disciples' lives was entirely normal. Understanding did not mean agreement, and Song Kai immediately refused without a second thought. Within the ruins market, we only discuss trades, not getting involved in any race, any creature, any form of conflict or grievances. As for this matter, Song Kai had already considered it in detail before it was mentioned, and this response was the result of careful deliberation. By doing so, not only could it convey the Zutian ruins market's stance of fairness, justice, and detachment, but it could also reassure Zhou Ping. Just think, if his bounty offer was accepted, he might be safe for the moment, but he would always feel some wariness towards the ruins market because of it. He could issue a bounty, which meant others could too. What if someone later set a bounty on his life? Moreover, from another perspective, if the ruins market could be persuaded to meddle in personal conflicts for some goods or resources, that would imply that it wasn't without desires and wants. Thus, if he offered something rare enough in the future, could it be possible for the ruins market to directly eliminate him? Indeed, as Song Kai had guessed, when the projection screen bluntly declined, Zhou Ping showed an expression of helplessness and sighed, yet deep inside him, in a place even he hadn't noticed, the last bit of tension completely relaxed, leaving him with no defenses against the Zutian ruins market under his feet. In the free trade area, compared to the matter of the bounty, Song Qi's attention was more focused on the word, spiritual mechanism, mentioned earlier. They call the floating land origin, spiritual mechanism, in their world. How interesting. Muttering to himself, he began to actively inquire of Zhou Ping with the thought. The projection screen changed, and a new line of text appeared on it. Do you still have the titanium crystals from the black bag earlier? He didn't conceal anything, directly mentioning the words, titanium crystal. It wasn't that he didn't care, but right beside him in the purchasing shop, samples of titanium crystal were displayed, and Zhou Ping had visited that shop before. Any attempt to conceal would seem like trying to cover up what was obvious. Upon hearing this, Zhou Ping became interested. He first shook his head, then nodded emphatically. I don't have any on me at the moment, but there are some in the world behind me. Saying this, he blinked, a spark of inspiration flashed in his heart, then whispered. May I ask, if I bring this titanium crystal here in the future, can it increase the number of times I can use the ruins market guest token? Song Kai paused for a moment before giving an affirmative response. If the quantity is sufficient, yes, his answer was ambiguous, as the specifics for later were still for him to decide. While the two conversed, noise erupted from the outer stall area, and Song Kai sent a tendril of his consciousness to probe. Raising his eyebrows, a look of curiosity and anticipation appeared in his eyes. At the entrance to the free trade area, near the ruins market, a few Pure Yang Sword Sect disciples had also quietly set up their stalls. Displayed on their stalls were not only various metal ores but also a type of stone they called Spirit Stone, which contained gentle energy, and various weapons known as magic artifacts, in addition to some assorted small containers. All these magic artifacts could only be activated with mana, which held little attraction to the various starry sea alien races. What really interested them were the various types of minerals on the stalls, many of which were extremely rare in other star domains. Besides that, there were those bottles and jars called elixirs. In the mouths of the disciples from the Pure Yang Sword Sect, the effects of these elixirs were exceptionally rare and hard to find, which is why some alien races thought to experiment with them. However, these elixirs, refined by the cultivators of the primordial continent over 10,000 years to perfectly suit their own kind, how could they work so easily on alien races with completely different life essences? Sure enough, there was an alien race that took an elixir supposedly for healing wounds, but not only did it fail to heal the already injured part, it directly caused stomach trouble, triggering the earlier commotion. Song Kai quickly stood up from his own stall and walked toward the stalls of the Pure Yang Sword sect disciples. In his previous life, he read numerous novels about immortality, and he was extremely interested in the famous alchemy and elixirs of the cultivation world. Of course, curiosity was just one aspect. He also had another idea in mind. Although the energy systems they practiced were different, after all, both were part of the Starry Sea human group. Even if their body structures weren't completely the same, they couldn't be too different. Perhaps the elixirs effective for cultivators could also work on him. With this thought, Song Kai quickly arrived at a few stalls, and still using the power of laws, he easily made his way to the very front. He reached out with his pale, bloodless, vampire arm and picked up a jade vial from the stall. Pop! Opening the stopper, Song Kai brought the vial to his nose and sniffed. At the same time, deep in his brow, within the ancestral torch, the Kang Chong in its mini-form was activated. The semi-automatic shipboard intelligence was activated. Beep. Receiving Captain's command. Beginning analysis of item composition. Analysis progress 1%, 2%, 3%. Beep. Analysis progress 100%. Analysis complete. Current item composition as follows. Star leaf grass, zoo fruit. Analysis complete. Starting to analyze the compatibility and conflicts of the item's various ingredients. Final analysis complete. This item causes moderate damage to the body of a 0-rank torch ship captain, light damage to the body of a 1st-rank torch ship captain, harmless to a 2nd-rank torch ship captain. Putting down the vial of healing potion in his hand, Song Kai immediately picked up another white jade porcelain vial and began the same operation. Beep. Receiving Captain's command. Beginning analysis of item composition. Analysis progress 1%. Like this, Song Kai continued the same operation for several minutes, but the results were not encouraging. Nearly all the elixirs had side effects on the body of a torch ship captain and provided no benefits. As expected, aside from resources, most items within different energy systems of races are not interchangeable. Song Kai thought of a phrase from his past textbooks. Yet, he did not cease the movements of his hands, still holding considerable hope for this world of immortal cultivation known as the Primordial Continent. Because of the influence of those immortality novels from his previous life, he was well aware of the importance of elixirs. As long as he could find one that could work for a torch ship captain, no matter its rank, it would certainly possess enormous potential value. Whether it was healing, enhancing cultivation speed, prolonging life, or others. Behind each of these possibilities lay an unimaginable vast fortune. The torch human civilization was immense, with a citizenry numbering in the trillions, creating a terrifyingly large market. Another several minutes passed, and Song Chi's face had gone from initial anticipation to complete silence, not a hint of surprise to be found entirely harmful, without exception. He mechanically picked up a porcelain vial from the stall in front of the 3rd disciple of the Pure Yang Sword sect again, then opened the stopper. However, this time was different from before. The vial no longer contained individual elixirs but a liquid with a faint pungent odor. In his confusion, the disciple in front of him explained. This is a body-tempering liquid, for external use. Just smear it on the skin, and it can gradually enhance one's physical body. Hearing the explanation, Song Kai nodded without saying anything, listening intently to the semi-automatic shipboard intelligence's notification tone that only he could hear. There was more anticipation in his eyes than before. The previous elixirs all required ingestion and then working in conjunction with the mana inside a cultivator's body to take effect, so they were not beneficial to torch ship captains who practiced spectral energy. In fact, they were harmful. What about this externally applied medicinal liquid then? Surely it didn't also require mana to be effective? As he mused, the notification tone in his ear gradually came to an end. Analysis of compatibility and conflict between the item's ingredients is 100%, with no conflicts. Final analysis completed. This item has a significant tempering effect on the body of a 0-rank torch ship captain, a moderate tempering effect on a 1st-rank torch ship captain, and is ineffective on a 2nd-rank or higher torch ship captain. When Song Kai heard this final result, it took him a good while to recover, followed immediately by extreme excitement. Having a quite strong tempering effect on the bodies of torch ship captains meant that this item could be used in conjunction with body tempering potions in the torch human civilization, thereby greatly accelerating the training speed of torch students, as well as many torch ship captains, in their guidance technique. As for the ultimate outcome of this, Song Kai couldn't predict too much just yet, as he still didn't fully understand the specifics of this body tempering liquid's effects. However, what was certain was that it could definitely further improve the success rate of torch awakenings within torch human civilization and also somewhat accelerate the advancement speed of torch ship captains. In the long run, the overall strength of torch human civilization would inevitably be further enhanced. Correspondingly, as an intermediary, Song Kai would inevitably reap the largest share of the profits. Taking a deep breath, Song Kai regained his composure and began to inquire about the body tempering liquid in his hand. How much is this body tempering liquid? Do you have something better? At the same time, he was rapidly considering other issues. First, although the body tempering liquid had initially passed the shipboard intelligence's analysis, it was still uncertain whether it had any harm, or if it truly benefited the cultivation of a torch ship captain's guidance technique. This was something that still needed to be tested with a physical specimen. He couldn't rush this and wouldn't test it on himself, but he could buy some torch ship captains with blood on their hands from the black market to serve as test subjects. Moreover, if it truly worked for torch ship captains, then he would also have to include this body tempering liquid in the dealings with Zhou Ping. Additionally, how to resell this body tempering liquid was also a problem. He might need to discuss it with his dad and grandfather afterward. Putting aside these various thoughts, the disciple of the Pure Yang Sword sect in front of him also responded. This is just the lowest level of body tempering liquid, only effective for 1st rank, Shi cultivation, beings, sold for 3 strands of 0-rank floating land origin per vial. I also have 2nd rank body tempering paste, but it's much more expensive, costing 20 strands of 1st rank floating land origin per box. Song Kai nodded, finally taking 10 vials of the 1st rank body tempering liquid and only 1 box of the 2nd rank body tempering paste. It wasn't that he didn't want to buy more, but that each of the disciples of the Pure Yang Sword sect only had 1 box. After the purchase, as Song Kai turned to leave, the faces of the Pure Yang Sword sect disciples all showed subtle smiles. Whether it was the body tempering liquid or the body tempering paste, they had marked up the price 3-fold, and including the other items sold at the stall, each of them had already made a considerable profit. The subtle smiles on their faces were all observed by Song Kai, but he didn't mind. It was normal for them to sell at a marked-up price. Others needed to make money too, after all. Besides, once he completed the tests later and confirmed the effects of the body tempering liquid, he would earn even more. Oddity Exchange Shop. After a brief moment of disappointment, Zhou Ping's eyes shimmered with change as he quickly considered his own options for retreat. He already had the 9 Heavens Cloud Essence in hand, and Elder Yunhe's storage bag contained many other valuable items. As long as he could stay alive this time, he believed that for a long time to come, he wouldn't have to worry about resources for cultivation, and a bright future lay ahead. But therein lay the contradiction. A bright future was one thing, but first, he had to make sure he would live to see it. In a few hours, the ruins market beneath his feet would close, and how to save his life was the most pressing issue at hand. After much consideration, Zhou Ping ultimately placed his hope on the Zutian ruins market. Of course, it was unrelated to the previous bounty. This time, he tried a different approach. He once again offered the 4th rank spiritual mechanism, 4th rank floating land origin, in his hand, and in the free trading area. Song Kai quietly watched without responding, waiting for Zhou Ping's next words. I would like to exchange this 4th rank spiritual mechanism for equivalent value life-saving items, or powerful weapons I can use would also do, he said. After speaking, he stared intently at the projection screen in front of him, his heart pounding as he anxiously waited. Outside, Song Kai pondered for a moment, then lightly lifted his arm. Simultaneously, the oddity exchange shop experienced another fluctuation of space. Zhou Ping's eyes widened with curiosity as he stared at the several objects that appeared out of thin air in front of him. Looking back at the projection screen above, a new line of text describing these items had appeared. Personal Energy Shield. Activates an energy shield with built-in energy batteries to defend against the majority of first-rank attacks. Enhanced Energy Grenades. Possessing second-rank explosive might. First-rank combat robot. Possessing first-rank combat power. Advanced exoskeleton-powered armor. Significantly enhances speed, reaction, defense, and strength. Seeing the introductions on the projection screen, the worry on Zhou Ping's face gradually dissipated, replaced by ecstatic joy. With these novel items, he could envision a significantly increased possibility of preserving his life in the days to come. And while he was elated, Song Kai in the free trading area was also deep in thought. The assortment he had offered, combined with the identity of the other as a cultivator, gave him a strong sense of visualization. He even subconsciously murmured 4 words to himself. Cyber cultivation. After a brief moment of distraction, Song Qi's thoughts moved, and the projection screen in the oddity exchange shop began to change. Zhou Ping, overjoyed by the content on the screen, stiffened. Among these 4, you may freely choose 2. Zhou Ping's gaze traveled between the 4 items in front of him and the projection screen, biting his lip before taking out another batch of floating land origin. Add these 200 strands of second-rank spiritual mechanism to exchange for all 4, is that possible? 200 strands of second-rank floating land origin. Song Kai naturally would not hesitate to agree. He was in need of second-rank floating land origin. He thought that would be the end of the trade, but as soon as Zhou Ping had put the 4 items into his storage bag, he swiftly spoke again. Do you have more first-rank combat robots and enhanced energy grenades? Song Kai immediately understood his meaning. Zhou Ping still didn't feel secure and wanted more enhanced energy grenades and military combat robots. To this, Song Kai saw no reason not to agree. However, this time, his eyes were set on Elder Yunhe's storage bag and the previously mentioned blue quality, Blackwater Zon Turtle Warship Armor component. Even though the storage bag required mana to operate and might not be immediately useful, it could come in handy in the future. Besides, it wouldn't cost him much to obtain, so Song Kai was still keen on getting it. Of course, the most crucial point was the size of the internal space of the storage bag. From the brief moment he had wiped the divine thought mark with the power of laws, he was sure that the space inside the storage bag wasn't smaller than a few dozen cubic meters, which was quite considerable. As for the blue quality, Blackwater Zon Turtle Warship Armor, he never turned down a free component of blue quality. Song Qi's plan was to see if his older brother Song Wen needed any blue quality warship armor. If he did, Song Kai would try to exchange it for Song Wen's fixed-point launch pad. Having the fixed-point launch pad would significantly enhance the utility of the Brainwave remote control system. Aside from the inability to recall it freely, it had no other significant drawbacks. If possible, he wanted to keep this component. Zhou Ping finally agreed, but the price Song Kai paid was 2 additional enhanced energy grenades and 5 more first-rank combat robots. Besides, Song Kai also acquired several bottles of body tempering liquid and 1 box of body tempering paste from him, bringing his total to 15 bottles of body tempering liquid and 2 boxes of body tempering paste. Free trading area. As time passed, the transaction at the ruins market was nearing its end. Come one, come all. Take a look. Big Loss Exchange. 11 strands of 0-rank floating land origin for 1 strand of first-rank floating land origin. 11 strands of first-rank floating land origin for 1 strand of second-rank floating land origin. He shouted, immediately catching the attention of many alien races, although most quickly lost interest again. Higher rank floating land origin was far less available than lower rank in any star domain, meaning few beings had it to offer and even fewer were willing to trade. Seeing this, Song Kai felt somewhat helpless. If he had to raise his bid any further, he might as well go back to the Chengxing Principality to make the exchange. Eventually, he acquired just over 30 strands of second-rank floating land origin, significantly less than previous times. However, he did exchange for quite a lot of first-rank floating land origin, nearly 2,000 strands. Indeed, one's luck isn't always so good. With a soft sigh, Song Kai quickly bounced back. Though the second-rank floating land origin obtained from the various alien races was limited, what he had obtained from Zhou Ping was truly substantive. Second-rank floating land origin 200 strands, third-rank floating land origin 100 strands, fourth-rank floating land origin 20 strands. Adding those to the spoils plundered from the Starshine civilization, Song Kai now had over 500 strands of second-rank floating land origin, an unfathomable wealth for others. With that in mind, Song Kai began to swiftly tally up all the gains from this ruins market transaction. Owing to the emergence of this group of primordial continent immortal cultivators, he had made a killing. By the time he had finished calculating, even Song Chi's own heartbeat had quickened. 1 orange main cannon, 1 blue warship armor plate, 50 titanium crystals, 1 high-level storage bag, 20 strands of 4th rank floating land origin, 100 strands of 3rd rank floating land origin, 200 strands of 2nd rank floating land origin, 3,200 strands of 1st rank floating land origin, over 70,000 strands of 0 rank floating land origin, several life cores of various ranks, several assorted difference resources. Altogether, even without counting the 2 ship-mounted components, those 50 titanium crystals, and the high-level storage bag, the total value of the rest exceeded 400,000 0-rank floating land origin, an absolutely terrifying amount. When he arrived at this figure, even Song Kai was startled. It was truly astonishing. After a brief shock came immense joy. After all, these were real earnings. P.S. Those still concerned about the 100-fold price difference when selling treasures, don't quibble anymore. The protagonist's rate of making money is indeed astonishing. Any more exaggeration and I'm afraid I might not be able to rein it in. Of course, deep down Song Kai also understood that the reason for such a terrifying income was largely due to good fortune meeting that group of primordial continents cultivating disciples. Zhou Ping alone contributed over 300,000 0-rank floating land origin, which accounted for nearly 80% of the total. If you add the 2 ship-mounted components and the titanium crystals, this one person would account for more than 95%, truly a big walking treasure dispensing child. After this encounter, the income from each subsequent ruins market trade would return to normal, but with this new channel from the primordial continent, there should be a reasonable increase. Phew! Song Kai exhaled, suppressing the excitement in his heart, and summoned the Kang Chong. Then, clutching the component of the Pure Yang sword beam cannon, he walked straight into the interior of the airship. As the Kang Chong's second orange component loaded, Song Kai was full of anticipation. After all, if it possessed such remarkable attributes at LV0, what about LV10, LV20? It was too exciting to fathom. Are you sure you want to spend 10 strands of 0-rank floating land origin plus 1,000 energy points plus 1 ton of sunflame ore to raise the level of the Pure Yang swordbeam cannon from LV0 to LV1? Confirmed. After acquiring the Pure Yang swordbeam cannon, Song Kai had also quietly purchased sufficient sunflame ore in previous transactions, so he could confidently proceed with enhancements. Shortly, after spending 420 strands of 0-rank floating land origin and 60 tons of sunflame ore, the level of the Pure Yang swordbeam cannon increased to LV10. But he did not stop there. After 10 consecutive enhancements, spending 690 strands of first-rank floating land origin and 440 tons of sunflame ore, he brought the level of the Pure Yang swordbeam cannon up to LV20. After enhancing it to this point, Song Kai paused slightly, finally slowing his actions. Because beyond LV-20, enhancing the Pure Yang Swordbeam Cannon would require titanium crystals. Indeed, the Pure Yang Swordbeam Cannon, enhanced to LV-20, had attributes that were already astounding. For a first-rank torch warship, it was more than sufficient. But was Song Kai just an ordinary torch ship captain of the first rank? Glancing at the 54 titanium crystals in his hand, he gritted his teeth and decided to continue the enhancement process. Swish, 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 swish. After 5 consecutive enhancements, the Pure Yang Swordbeam Cannon gained another 5 levels, reaching LV-25. At this point, Song Kai had 24 titanium crystals left in his hand. He could have enhanced it one more time, but, after some thought, he gave up on that idea, saving the last 24 titanium crystals for future use. Looking at the Pure Yang Swordbeam Cannon's attributes now, gorgeous, was an understatement. Pure Yang Swordbeam Cannon LV-25 quality, orange feature, mixed hollow extreme Yang sword intent divine light. Feature 2. Main cannon might increased by 90% consumption, 2000 shot, spectral energy points. Attack. 100,360 charge. 5s. Buffer 10s up rank requirement. 70 strands of second rank floating land origin, 20,000 spectral energy points, 200 tons of sunflame ore, 12 titanium crystals. Mixed hollow extreme Yang sword intent divine light. After charging for 30 seconds, release a gigantic sword intent slash in the designated direction, having 450% might of the main cannon, destroying everything in its path. With damage exceeding 100,000 per hit, if you were to use the mixed hollow extreme Yang sword intent divine light feature, in one blow could deal over 400,000 damage. Such a fearsome attribute was truly terrifying. However, others should be the ones to be shocked by this, as this terrifying main cannon was mounted on the Kongchang. The only thing in Song Chi's heart was profound elation. But this round of enhancements, aside from the titanium crystals, also consumed 200 strands of second-rank floating land origin, causing Song Chi's stash of the second-rank floating land origin to diminish by a small amount. Money was truly like running water. While Song Kai was enhancing the Pure Yang Swordbeam Cannon, unbeknownst to him, far away on the primordial continent in the eastern divine land, Luofu realm, a battle had already broken out in the wilderness. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Spells zipped through the air, with one towering tree after another being blasted in half. In front of the disciples of the Pure Yang Sword Sect, 3 Qi Cultivation 9th Layer disciples shouted coldly. Zhou Ping, hand over the storage bag of Elder Tianhe and everything inside it, they demanded. Surrounded by a faint layer of white light shield, Zhou Ping chuckled coldly in response. Ha ha ha. Everything belonging to your Elder Tianhe has been traded to the beings behind the Zhu Tian Ruins market. Today, you're doomed to achieve nothing, he taunted. The disciples of the Pure Yang Sword Sect all had vastly sullen expressions. No one knew what kind of deal he had made with the entity behind the Ruins market, and if it was as he said, it definitely wasn't good news. With that in mind, their gazes fixated on the military exoskeleton power armor Zhou Ping was wearing, speculating whether this exquisite piece of steel might be the result of the trade. As they entertained their doubts, their attacks did not lessen in the slightest. Whatever the opponent had done and whatever function this seemingly strange steel construct might have, they were determined not to let Zhou Ping get away. Zhou Ping was not surprised by their reaction. He moved his arm, feeling the significant enhancement provided by the exoskeleton armor, and then once again slapped his storage bag at his waist. In the next second, 6 combat robots, with clear first-rank energy fluctuations, appeared before him. A short distance away, the 9 disciples of the Pure Yang Sword Sect narrowed their eyes at the sight of these newly appeared steel figures, which posed a considerable threat to them. Could it be puppets? They wondered, encountering this steel humanoid construct for the first time and immediately thinking of the puppets from the cultivation world. Yet they quickly dismissed the thought, as Zhou Ping was just a common outer disciple of the Luofu sword sect and would not possess so many puppets. It had to be an alien civilization's creation from the ruins market. Realizing this tightened the disciples' nerves. After exchanging glances, all 9 of them soared out simultaneously, rushing straight toward Zhou Ping. They didn't know how many deals Zhou Ping had made with the existence behind the ruins market. They only knew that any further delay would be to their disadvantage, as this was the stronghold of the Luofu sword sect. Under Zhou Ping's command, the 6 military combat robots also charged forward to meet them head-on. Zhou Ping joined the fray without hesitation, and soon the 2 sides were tangled in a fierce battle. Combat robots couldn't fly, so fighting on the ground was their optimal choice, therefore, he couldn't flee. If I were to run, I would definitely have to use the spatial evasion disc, but then, the 9 members from the Pyongyang sword sect would surely follow suit, leaving the combat robots utterly useless. Having made up his mind, Zhou Ping had a determined look in his eyes. What the people from the Pyongyang sword sect didn't know was that he still had another trump card up his sleeve, a second-rank enhanced energy grenade with significant might. Moreover, he still kept the Jade Token magical artifact given by Elder Tianhe, which he chose not to trade because he needed it to save his life. With this Jade Token to protect him, he had no fear of being affected by the explosive energy of the energy grenades. As time went on, the battle gradually reached a fever pitch. It had to be said that the exoskeleton-powered armor was indeed quite useful. Although it was slightly less agile, in a situation where close combat was inevitable, it was nothing short of a single soldier's divine artifact. With its assistance, Zhou Ping, at the 8th level of Qi cultivation, was not only able to clash head-on with disciples from the Pyongyang sword sect who were at the 9th level of Qi cultivation without being at a disadvantage, but he was also fighting 1 against 3. However, Zhou Ping couldn't feel the slightest bit of joy in his heart. Although he was still holding on, the 6 combat robots beside him were completely suppressed by the other 6 disciples from the Pyongyang sword sect. After all, they were standardized creations, suitable for cannon fodder, and no match for cultivators of the human race who were known for their combat power in the same rank. Zhou Ping hardened his heart and quietly took out an enhanced energy grenade from his storage bag, ready to use the method he had initially thought of. Just then, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several blazing sword lights came flying from the vault of heaven above, accompanied by a strong wind that enveloped the sky, and the battlefield in the dense forest below came to an abrupt halt. Zhou Ping was shocked, but when he saw that the figures descending on their swords were all dressed in the Luofu sword sect disciple attire, his heart sank in relief. He then quickly spoke up amidst the whistling wind and pressure. "Fellow seniors, I am a disciple from Heavy Sword Peak, and I have an urgent matter to report to the seniors and the sect." Zhou Ping reacted quickly. If he had used the energy grenade to eliminate all the disciples of the Pyongyang sword sect without leaving any survivors, he would have undoubtedly hidden everything about the Zutian ruins market, as well as the ruins market guest token, deep in his heart. But now it was different. With the 9 Pyongyang sword sect disciples detained, the matter of the Zutian ruins market could not be kept secret. It was better for him to report it proactively, as this would also earn the favor of the high-level sect officials and might even result in a reward. In the skies above the Luofu realm, a group of Luofu sword sect inner sect disciples sped by on their swords. Zhou Ping stood cautiously behind one of the Foundation establishment disciples' flying swords, quickly contemplating how to answer when meeting with the high-level sect officials, while listening to the exchange between the Foundation establishment brothers. Soon, he understood the general progression of the sect conflict. It turned out that the sect's ally, Goddess Palace, came to reinforce them, helping the Luofu sword sect repel the Pyongyang sword sect. Half an hour later, at the Luofu sword sect's gate, in Luofu Hall. "Zhou Ping, are you saying that this bronze token can connect to the Zutian ruins market once every month?" Standing below the Great Hall, Zhou Ping stood with his body bowed and his face full of tension. There was no helping it. Around the Great Hall sat a dozen individuals, all of them were elders of the sect, And for a mere outer sect disciple like him, when had he ever seen such a scene? Carefully organizing his speech, Zhou Ping quickly responded. To the sect master, yes. This token is called the Ruins Market Guest Token and can connect to the Zutian Ruins Market once a month. However, I mortgaged most of Elder Tianhe's items to the existence behind the market, and only received the opportunity for 5 more connections in return. To increase the number of connections further, one must provide other rare resources. As he spoke, Zhou Ping emphasized the importance of the Zutian Ruins Market and his own role in it by adding, because the Pure Yang Sword Sect disciples were in hot pursuit, I didn't have much time to interact with the bizarre extraterrestrial creatures in the market's stall area. Yet even so, I saw nearly 10 types of medicinal herbs that are extremely rare in our cultivation world. Additionally, there is this batch of Gangfeng Cloud Essence. I traded Elder Yunhe's sword pellet not only for this Ruins Market guest token but also for this batch of Gangfeng Cloud Essence. When Zhou Ping took out the clump of 9 Heavens Cloud Essence, all the elders of the Luofu sword sect in the hall were visibly moved. An old voice echoed in the hall. Such a large clump of Gangfeng Cloud Essence, let alone us nascent soul cultivators, even if the sect master personally went to the Gangfeng Heaven to collect and refine it, it would probably take hundreds of years, and nascent soul cultivators would need more than 1,000 years. At the head of the hall, the sword sect master with divinity transformation cultivation lightly waved his hand, and then a slight mana fluctuation arose in the hall, drawing the clump of Gangfeng Cloud Essence from Zhou Ping's hand toward the top of the hall. After confirming that it was indeed genuine Gangfeng Cloud Essence, he nodded slightly and then turned his gaze back to Zhou Ping below. You also mentioned that the ore produced in that mine in the Black Sky Realm is called Titanium Crystal by that Ruins Market Master? Yes, and that Ruins Market Master also said that as long as enough Titanium Crystal is provided, the number of times this Ruins Market guest token can be used can be continuously increased. After Zhou Ping finished speaking, he hesitated for a long time before finally adding one more thing. Moreover, this Ruins Market guest token is bound to me. The Ruins Market Master said that only I can activate this guest rank token. Of course, this was a lie concocted by him. In fact, even if he had died at the hands of the 9 disciples of the Pure Yang Sword Sect, those disciples from the Pure Yang Sword Sect would still be able to use the guest token. Hearing his words, a host of sword sect elders in the Great Hall stroked their beards and laughed heartily. Rest assured, we wouldn't withhold benefits from you, young man, nor would our sect do such a thing as to cast aside the millstone after the grain has been ground. As if in response to the words of the elders, the sword sect master at the head of the hall also nodded and said, Heavy Sword Peak Disciple, Zhou Ping. Disciple present. Based on the merit you've achieved this time, you are now promoted to a direct disciple of Heavy Sword Peak and will enjoy the treatment of a true transmission disciple of our sect. In addition, the sect will support you fully in your foundation establishment, in the hope that you will diligently cultivate in the future. Yes. Zhou Ping's voice trembled slightly. To become a direct disciple of Heavy Sword Peak and receive the treatment of a true transmission disciple meant that he might have the chance to strive for the Golden Core in the future, and as long as he managed the relationship between Zutian Ruins Market and the sect well, even reaching the nascent soul stage wasn't impossible. Above in the Great Hall, the sword sect master's gaze shifted, sweeping around the interior of the hall before speaking in a deep voice. This matter is to be classified as top secret by the sect. After leaving this Great Hall, you mustn't mention any word related to Zutian Ruins Market, otherwise, you will face the sect's disciplinary actions. Additionally, send someone covertly to the Black Sky Realm to collect titanium crystals. Make sure the task is carried out without attracting any attention. It must be done without anyone detecting. For a time, the Luofu sword sect issued countless orders that seemed unrelated but were all closely connected to Zutian Ruins Market. The grand machinery of the Luofu sword sect began to operate silently. Song Kai, of course, was completely unaware of this. After enhancing the Pure Yang sword beam cannon, He withdrew the Kang Chong from the ruins Market Spacia. It was time to return the shift to Song Yu at the base. The Illusion Space, a secret base crafted by the Song family. Upon exiting the room, Song Kai did not go straight to the monitoring room but ran to his father's room, only to find it empty. Next to the base, Song Kai found his father in the warship docking area. More precisely, he found the Qingkong. The base was too small to support the summoning of an escort ship, so Song Chao could only cultivate in this warship docking area. Descending from the Qingkong, Song Chao looked at his son with a puzzled expression. Ordinarily, Song Kai wouldn't come looking for him unless there was a matter of importance, and it wouldn't be a minor one. What's the matter? Has the Bloodblade Star Thieves made a big move? Seeing Song Chao about to rush towards the base anxiously, Song Kai quickly grabbed hold of him. No, it's not that, Dad. I have something to tell you. As he spoke, he took out the porcelain vial and wooden box he had prepared. What is it? Song Chao took them with a look of confusion and then ran back to the Qingkong. When he emerged again, his face, originally filled with doubt, was now extremely grave. He quickly scanned the surroundings several times, making sure there was no one else present, then rapidly pulled Song Kai into the Qingkong. This time Song Chao did not use the Torch Warship boarding certificate but allowed for the deduction of 10 strands of second-rank floating land origin. Where did you get this? Hearing this, Song Kai frowned, wanting to speak, yet not sure how to explain it. Seeing his son's troubled expression, Song Chao did not press further but instead changed his questioning approach. Or perhaps, is there any issue with the source of this item? Is it something developed by certain organizations within the Chengxing Principality, or did it come from somewhere else? And what is the cost? This time, Song Kai no longer hesitated and shook his head straightforwardly. I have a way to obtain it from outside. It's not just the Chengxing Principality. I can assure you, the entire territory of Torch human civilization probably doesn't have this. As for the cost, each bottle I acquire only requires 3 strands of 0-rank floating land origin. After Song Kai finished speaking, Song Chao's expression began to undergo drastic changes. At times grave, at times contemplative, at times joyful. In the end, joy predominated. Seeing this, Song Kai felt he had a rough understanding, and ventured tentatively. Dad, have you tried it? Is this stuff really effective for us torch captains? Song Chao came back to his senses, nodded lightly, and then added solemnly, it's not only effective, the effect of the liquid in this porcelain bottle is comparable to an intermediate body tempering potion. Do you know what that means? It means that once this thing appears on the market in large quantities, it will inevitably lead to a frenzy, and the interests behind it will drive many big consortia and large families crazy. After hearing this, Song Chi's smile was extraordinarily brilliant. Of course, what he cared about was not the huge benefits behind the body tempering liquid. He had thought about this many times before and had already prepared for it in his mind. But the prerequisite for all of this was to be certain that the body tempering liquid was indeed effective for Torch warship captains. And the positive feedback about the body tempering liquid from his father just now had completely confirmed this point, which was why the smile on Song Chi's face was so brilliant. However, at this moment, Song Chao's tone shifted abruptly, becoming grave as he said, Son, get as much of this stuff as you can in the future. The family will pay a premium for you, but, before we successfully return to the main house, this thing must not be leaked. Remember, you must not sell it, not even in the black market. After that, Song Chao felt like his previous statement wasn't enough and added another sentence immediately. For your grandfather, a third-rank torch captain, this is far from enough. Remember that. Hearing this, Song Kai nodded solemnly, appreciating the value of the body tempering liquid even more. After the father and son had finished speaking, Song Kai prepared to leave the Qingkong. He had already delayed for a few minutes, and staying any longer would lead to a deduction of several strands of second-rank floating land origin. Before leaving, Song Kai asked 2 more questions. The first was about the box of body tempering paste. Dad, What about that box of body tempering paste? Is it of any use to you? Song Chao paused for a moment, then shook his head saying, I don't know about that yet, we'll have to wait for your grandfather to confirm it later. However, you can use that body tempering liquid. It will not harm a torch warship captain's body in any way. The second question was about titanium crystals. Dad, do you have any extra titanium crystals on you? This time, Song Chao did not show any strange expression, as Song Kai had already surprised him enough in recent times. He had developed an immunity. However, his answer was somewhat disappointing to Song Kai. No, I've used them all. I've consumed quite a bit here on the Qingkong to help your mother advance, and they're all gone. But before Song Kai left, his father gave him a tip. If you urgently need it, you can ask your grandfather for some when we go back, he has quite a stock. Song Kai nodded and exited the Qingkong, 20 days later, at the Zutian Ruins Market. In the All Attributes cultivation room, Song Kai applied a bottle of body tempering liquid on his skin and then quickly took up the posture for cultivating the spectral energy guidance technique, once again beginning his cultivation of the guidance technique. In the past 20 days, with the aid of the body tempering liquid, there was a noticeable advancement in his level 8 guidance technique. Compared to the intermediate body tempering potion, the effect of this body tempering liquid seemed to be much better. Of course, this was just his illusion, or maybe not quite an illusion. On Song Chi's body, the effect of the body tempering liquid indeed far surpassed the intermediate body tempering potion. But the fact was that the effects of the two were indeed very close to each other. The reason for this phenomenon was simple. Over the past 20+ years, Song Kai had taken intermediate body tempering potions multiple times. Gradually, his body had naturally developed a resistance to them, while the body tempering liquid, as something completely new, had no such resistance, at least not yet. It was precisely because of this that Song Chi's cultivation of the guidance technique had accelerated significantly. Suddenly, a strong wave of spectral energy fluctuated in the All Attributes cultivation room. Song Kai, who had been closing his eyes, suddenly opened them as a clearly visible pale red vapor emerged from his body and then spread outwards rapidly. It was an obvious fluctuation of vital energy. Phew! Song Kai ceased his cultivation movements and let out a long breath. His eyes were filled with unrestrained joy. Finally, the guidance technique has broken through to level 9. It was not easy. Indeed, the intense vital energy fluctuation was due to his guidance technique successfully breaking through from level 8 to level 9, just one step away from the first rank.